Welcome everyone to our annual reports training. Before we begin, can everyone who's registered, are they able to see the PowerPoint on the screen? And you can go ahead and chat in the text box on the side here if you can't. We're good to go? All right. So we will start things off with an introduction with our interim CEO, Trent Blain.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. I just wanted to say welcome and thank you for all your great work. I'm filling in as the interim CEO until we have a new search filled, and that's probably going to be completed by early 2019. So just so you know, that's kind of the timing that we're working under. The other piece that I've been with United Way for a little over a year, and then prior to that I worked at General Mills. So a little bit of background for me. I was actually working in the marketing department here at United Way, and then we're moved over to the interim CEO role. And as I said, our board has kicked off the search process, and a lot of people are asking, so I just want to be open about that. We expect the role to be filled sometime in early 2019. But during that time, it really is business as usual for us. We are not slowing down. We have a new long-range plan that we're aggressively working on in partnership with you all. So a lot of folks have been saying, how is this time going to go? And we want to continue to accelerate collectively with you all impacting the community. So please know that we are not slowing down. Frankly, if in any way we're trying to move faster. So that's a little bit about me and an update on the CEO search. A couple other things just to know. We do know that many of you are looking for an update on the funding for our education work, which is currently through December 2018. And so currently we are working through a plan and expect to provide an update for kind of the January through July period of 2019 by the end of August. And then as part of our total transformation work, we'll be providing from kind of summer of 2019 and beyond, we'll be providing an update this fall. So just wanted to recognize that we know that's out there and we've received a lot of questions, and that's our current timing. And you all actually, some of you have already played a role in that, and all of you will get the chance within the next week we'll be sending out a survey actually to all the executive directors to really solicit input on our transformation, because we want everyone's input and everyone to have a chance to be heard as we're really rethinking about how do we maximize our impact in the community going forward. So I at least wanted to address the search, the discussions, the questions on the education funding, as well as kind of upcoming and continued engagement with all of you as we continue the transformation. And then I also just wanted to take a moment to thank everyone here. Obviously, we can't do this work without you. It's truly a partnership, but we also know there's been a lot of change here at United Way, and your patience and flexibility has been invaluable. And know that that has not gone unnoticed, and we know that at times it's been a little bit rocky, and so we appreciate you helping us work through that. Obviously, the work that we're going on now, we think in the long term is going to have the best impact for our community, but during times of change, we know that we were trying to go as fast as possible and keep it as smooth as possible. We know that means that changes on your end. So we just want to say thank you so much for your flexibility and your patience as we work through that. Like I said, there'll be a lot of activity coming up here in the fall where you can really help us shape the future of the organization. And so those were kind of my opening comments. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the team, Rachel, Sam, and Naomi, to kind of get into the content.
Great. Thank you, Trent. So this is Naomi Zook-Fisher. I am Senior Program Manager working with our Early Childhood Development Partners. It is always very fun for me at this time of year to talk about annual reports because I love them. And I will just run through the agenda very quickly. First, I'm going to give you a very broad overview of annual reports. Why do we do them? What do we ask for? What's the timeline? Then Sam Blackwell is going to give an overview and give guidelines and tips for how to actually complete the annual reports. Then we're going to have a presentation on the technical components of the annual report that usually our colleague Tom usually does. And then Rachel Speck will wrap it up with some resources that can help you as you move through this process. So the why annual report spiel is basically the following. We use the annual reports that you submit to us every year in a bunch of different ways. First, we use it from a monitoring and accountability purpose. This is a requirement that all grantees are supposed to complete. Secondly, we program managers, staff, and others learn so much from the content that you submit in the annual reports about how things are going, what's working, what are the challenges, and what are some trends. This information is then often it transforms our thinking and our strategy as well as field building. Most of the program managers here at United Way sit a lot of different tables and coalitions, and we constantly are bringing the information gleaned from these annual reports to those meetings and are really trying to lift up your work as well as advocate for the things that our partners need and want. We also share stories from these annual reports internally with our board and stakeholders. And then, as you may have seen, our community report, we share the findings from the reports every year with all of our broader stakeholders and donors. And so these stories are really rich, and it brings a lot of meaning and tangible ways for donors to understand the good work that you and we do all together. So these stories are very important and often pique our interest, and we'll come reach out to you for a lot of different ways to lift up those stories with others. So that's kind of a very broad overview of why we use the annual reports, but we also do try and share back the learnings from these with the grantees, and you should have received the summary of those findings, I believe, in February of this last year. We're going to try and tighten up that time frame and be able to share back findings sooner or closer to when you guys submit the reports. But again, we gain so much from the process. So what you will be submitting, and I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with this, and the content of the annual reports has not really changed. We ask for program data. That means we're asking for a broad summary, again, of what your program is, how has it changed over the last year. We ask that you report on the outcome indicators that you submitted, either through the RFP and or through program indicator change forms. And I may have gotten that name wrong, but Sam will clear that up when he gets to his piece. We'll also ask for a program budget, demographic, and all of the content that we're asking for is for the period that runs from July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. So again, the specifics of the content really haven't changed. The timeline. So today is the 9th. We're giving you, the 8th, and that is when we're giving this training. The actual reports are going to be live on August 13th, so that's when you will be able to start inputting data. The training that we're giving today, the recording will be posted on the Junction tomorrow. So if you want to listen to it again, or you have colleagues that you'd like to have listen to it as well, you can look out for that report, the recording tomorrow. And then reports will be due by 4 p.m. on September 21st. Program managers will then take that information, as I said before, and we'll spend the rest of the month of September and October aggregating data, gleaning themes, and perhaps in some cases asking further questions of grantees. So that's the broad overview of the timeline. I should have also mentioned that in addition to this being recorded, we do encourage you to ask questions through the chat box. Questions that are fairly general in nature, we will respond to those at the end of this training session. If they're more specific and we can answer them in the moment, we will, and if not, we're going to direct you to your program manager. Again, Rachel Speck will give you all the details on the resources and people to reach out to later. But again, please feel free to pose questions via the chat. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Sam.
Great. So I'm just going to talk a bit about the guidelines for reporting and some tips to help you submit a great report. So like Naomi said, there are different sections of the report. We're asking about outcomes and indicators, which will be the same as the outcomes and indicators that if you're a jobs program that you applied for the RFP with, or if you're a safety net or education program that you have reported on in years past. We will also have a narrative section, and it says that these are new narrative questions. You'll see quite a few repeats from previous years. There will be a couple additional optional ones. And so the themes that we're trying to get at with those narrative questions are very much the same as we've been asking in year past. Some of the wording might just be different. We use the same demographic data form as last year. There continue to be optional demographics that we'll get into in just a little bit. The budget data will be the same as last year, so we're using the exact same form. And then the service delivery locations will also be part of this. We are asking you to put in service delivery locations for next year's programming, so that when we are sort of digging through some of our data about who's doing what and where next year, we will be able to pinpoint where folks are doing the work with the most up-to-date information possible. I will just say that when you go into the link and you open your report has been created specifically for you, so whatever you see in the report is what you need to answer. So it should align with your outcomes and indicators, and the narrative question should fit your area. So outcomes and indicators are one of the sections that we're going to talk about. Outcomes data should align with the outcomes that you proposed in your program summary forms or your indicator update form. For this section, we'll want the data from July 1st, 2017 to June 30th, 2018. And we will be looking at the outcomes that you report through this process and using the numbers that are in those program summary forms or indicator update forms as the benchmark for us to understand sort of how the program is going and what has been happening with the program over the past year. So those forms are available on the Junction, which is where you sign in to look at the annual reports as well. So you should be able to pull those forms up to know what you proposed you are going to do, either during the RFP process or sometime in between the RFP process and now. So we will ask you to go through and fill out all of those numbers, but we also included an explanation box beneath each of those. And that explanation box is a tool for you to use to provide us with context that you think we might need to understand the numbers. So this is actually a very helpful tool for us to figure out what trends, what unique challenges or successes might be facing each of the programs that may have an impact on their numbers. And so we don't use this box as simply a requirement for folks who are not reaching their benchmarks. It is an opportunity for you to provide us with context that can help us understand why there might be variation in the numbers or why the number might honestly be spot on. So examples of things that you could include in that box would be if you had a staff person leave and so you didn't get to support as many people as you wanted to, or you got an additional grant to help expand programming so you saw more people than you thought that you would. Basically any sort of external, internal factors that might be affecting the numbers that you put forward and the numbers in the report. So then we will also have a section that has narrative questions. For folks who have filled out these reports before, many of these questions are going to look very familiar. So there's absolutely no right or wrong answer to these questions. This is just an opportunity for us to get to know more about your program, where you've been in the past year, what you're looking forward to, and for you to be able to tell your story as well. So use these questions as an opportunity for you to be able to answer or to be able to tell your story in a way that you think will be helpful for us. I will say that these answers don't go into a black hole. We do ask for this information for multiple reasons. One is that it helps us contextualize your organization's work, where you've been and where you're going, which is super helpful for us. And then we also look through all of the answers to help understand trends and themes that might come up in the multiple organizations and programs that we fund. And we use that to help us influence our systems work, the conversations that we're having at many different tables across the community. They help us guide our work in future years, and they also help us understand where we might be able to support outside of the funding that we give. So this opens up opportunity for us to learn, and we hope that it offers up opportunity for others to learn as well. Can we go back to great. So one more. So I'm just going to run through the questions really quickly and sort of give you some thinking about why we're asking them. So the first one is pretty self-explanatory. We just need an elevator pitch for your program. That's helpful for us as we read through these reports to be reminded of what each individual program is doing. And it also helps us figure out if someone asks us a question about programs that are doing certain type of work to be able to have all of that information in one easy-to-read place. The second question is about any program model or implementations that may have changed in your program. This helps us understand what big changes we should be keeping track of. So if you change your program model, if you change the hours that you're open, if you opened a new location, if you closed a location, these are the types of things that we want to know so that we have the context we need to understand the numbers that you're putting forward in the rest of the report. Number 3 is a pretty broad question about community trends or other external factors that influence the program or the program participants. This is really helpful for us to understand some of the broad systems level trends that might be happening that are impacting multiple programs at once. And so these are, again, really useful for us as we talk with our system partners, and they're helpful for us to be able to share back with folks that the things that you are experiencing as trends are also being experienced by others. So the 4th question is about how your program has, how you've been able to change your program and use continuous improvement practices. So that sort of gets at, if we're seeing these trends, these external trends in the community, or we're seeing internal things happening, how are the programs adapting to those? And we use that information to help understand how programs might need to shift and adapt, but we also use that information to identify folks who might be doing something that's unique or interesting that could be beneficial to other programs as well. So, and number 5 is the question that's about looking forward. So as we move into the next year, what are some of the things that you're hoping to implement? Just a note for education grantees, because the grant has only been extended to December 2018. When we say in the next year, that's what we mean for education grantees. So number 6, we're not asking this year for just straight up success stories. We are actually just asking you to provide a success story or talk about something that your program or organization is proud of that you've done in the last year. We want to make sure that we're able to make space for folks to celebrate their successes in this process, and we want to make sure that we are identifying folks who are doing really great work and make the space to applaud that. So the next question is just a question that gets sort of at the unique value of United Way funding. So we really want to understand the way in which United Way funding has given you the opportunity to do something that you might not have been able to do before. So this might be an opportunity for you to talk about leveraging other grants perhaps, or paying for staff time that wouldn't be covered by other grants. Or even things like allowing you to buy school supplies, or paying for someone's gas card to help them get to work. Just whatever it is that United Way funding has been utilized towards that would be you wouldn't be able to do without it. And then number 8 and 9 are optional questions. So the 8th one is really about the United Way value outside of funding. So if there are examples of ways in which United Way has supported you or your program through things outside of the funding that we provide, this is your opportunity to talk about it. If you want to leave this question blank, that is totally fine. There will be absolutely no penalty for not answering this question. We just wanted to give folks the space to be able to talk about that, so that we can talk about the ways in which United Way is supporting programs outside of funding. And the last one is about working with our marketing department. So instead of asking everyone to submit success stories, which we then will sort of use in our own fundraising and marketing, we wanted to provide folks the space to be able to engage with us in a deeper level to help tell your story and to help tell United Way's story. And so if you're interested in engaging with us in our marketing department, please feel free to put in a contact for that conversation. Again, if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine, and you won't be penalized in any way for not answering that question either. And then lastly, the budget, demographic, and service delivery locations are the last 3 parts of the report. And so just to note that budget should be on the reporting cycle for the grant, so it should be from July to June. If that is a very heavy lift, please feel free to reach out to your program manager, and we will talk about how we can either support you in doing that or support you in doing something else that might fit your own budget reporting requirements. In the revenue section of the budget, the Greater Twin Cities United Way portion should only reflect the grant amount. So there is a separate section for designations. So if your organization does receive designations, please put those specifically in the designations part and not in the grant amount part. This really helps us understand what portion of United Way funding makes up the budget, and it can get confusing if designations are in there as well. So the demographics, again, align, they're the same as they were in previous years, and they align with the census categories. We do that because we want to be able to use the information that we get from these reports in the same way that we use information from the census to help inform our work. So as part of that, we do recognize that there is a section that, because we're using the census data, there are two separate sections about race and ethnicity. We understand that this is a super complicated issue, and that the collection of such data is a really serious responsibility. And so there are two separate, because we are trying to align with the census, there are two separate categories for race and ethnicity. And so we would encourage you all to choose a race and an ethnicity for each of your participants. And Hispanic Latino is defined as people from Latin American descent, regardless of race. So, for example, if a person of African descent from Colombia, they might choose African American as their race, and then Hispanic Latino for their ethnicity. There are also additional optional demographics that you'll see on the form. Again, these are completely optional, so we would like to have access to that information, but if you don't collect it or you don't want to share it with us, that's totally fine. Then the optional demographics are focused on cultural communities where 25% or more of the people in those communities are living at 200% poverty or below. So that's how we decided to include those different cultural communities. But we did provide space for others, so if you want to tell us a story about a community that isn't included, we would absolutely welcome that. Another thing that I will say about the demographics is that we do ask that you avoid unknowns wherever possible. So we know that it can be difficult to get demographic data on everyone that you might come in contact to and might be reporting on, but if possible, including the demographic information is really helpful for us, and we thank you for taking the time and the diligence to be able to do that. And then the last thing is that the service delivery locations, again, should reflect the next program year. So as you're looking forward to 2017 or 2018 through 2019, think about where you're going to be providing services, and be sure to include that in the form. If you have a large number of service delivery locations, please let us know, and we can figure out a way to upload those so that you don't have to do it one by one if you have 20 or 30 different locations. And I will say that for people who might be concerned about privacy or about safety, do not feel like you need to include the exact address of any of your service delivery locations. If you could include as much information as you feel comfortable putting in there, that would be fantastic. So now I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who is going to walk you through the reporting system and how to access your report, save it, and submit it.
Awesome. Thanks, Cam. Hi, all. So we'll get started here. So today we're going to walk through the basics of how to utilize our system. Many of you have accessed the system previously, and so this will be a great refresher for most of you. So the first thing you're going to notice is that you won't want to begin with starting your application. You're going to want to start with 1, creating your application team, and then 2, prepare to log in. And this is really important for us because our system allows for multiple users, but we also only have a system that allows us to save one piece at a time. So you really want to be mindful to think about who will be doing what when, and making sure the entire team is registered on our grants portal prior to starting your new application. The registration process is more complicated if we try and add team members after an application has already been started, as we need a couple of days to make sure to process everything correctly. In addition, making sure everything is set so that you and your team successfully log in. More for the first time around, which many of you have already done, so we're good to go there. So in preparing to log in, we always encourage that you use Internet Explorer. That is the system that works the best for our grants reporting. If you have received an initial password or are registered as a funded agency in any other capacity, you'll be using that same username and password to take these initial steps required for registration. If you have not received an initial password already, or if you're new to this process, or if you have additional team members who will need to be registered, you will need to provide the legal address of your agency, your full name, your email address, and any information or additional information that lets us know if you need access to an existing application form. If you should forget to register a team member until after the application form is opened, we can accommodate that, but it will take some more time. And I'm throwing a lot of information out to folks right now, and I'm happy to discuss it further offline. My colleague, Marquita Cannon, is also helping us answer questions right now, should anyone have anything to go into the live chat. All right, so preparing to log in. Let's see. So if you've received an initial password, you are already registered. If you forgot, you can reset from the login page. If you need an initial password, please visit this very long link. This PowerPoint will be provided on our nonprofit portal after the presentation, and I will be doing a quick demo for us to look at our nonprofit portal page as well, where a lot of this information is housed. Again, should you have any questions throughout this process, I know our United Way portal is rather unique. Please feel free to email support@gtcuw.org with the subject line United Way Grant System Password. So logging in, so you'll access your subsite via the website. So you just want to go to grantproposal.unitedwaytwincities.org, and that's where you'll enter your email address and password. Okay, so I will show you guys how to access this through the website. Can everyone see this page? Are folks able to see that, Marquita?
Nope, I'm not able to see.
No? Okay.
Pull up the PowerPoint.
How are we doing?
It'll pull up the PowerPoint, but it will not pull up the web page. It's like if there's something in front of it. Library.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks for your patience, everyone. So if you are at our home page, you'll see at the top here it says For Nonprofits, and then we'll click on this. And then if we scroll down just a little ways, you can see here, if you aren't already signed up, a space to sign up for funding notices. And we also have here our nonprofit portal about 2/3 of the way down. So you'll select our nonprofit portal. And this is kind of a one-stop shop for all of the different things that's going on with our, throughout the grant-making process. We have some news and updates down there. But for you guys, for in context of our annual reports, you'll want to click on Grantee Reporting Resources, followed by Annual Reports, which will take you to this page here. So we have here the general information we've been sending you about our annual reports, the information about our online webinar. Tomorrow morning you'll see some updates here with this recording of the webinar, the PowerPoint as well. And then as we keep scrolling here, you'll see your program manager's contact information, as well as the outcome and indicator instructions that they've provided for you to help with this reporting process. We have two glitches here I'm seeing that we need to fix, which you will see resolved by tomorrow morning. Let's see. We've also provided this year an example of our narrative responses. This is going to just be an additional tool for you guys to see some instances in which we've really seen some wonderful answers to our narrative responses. And then again, there's some instructions here for accessing the online grant system. So again, encouraging that you use Internet Explorer as well as the other browsers as well. And a space here for you to request a new user account should you not already have one. Additionally, once the report is live, there will be a massive button in the center of this page that says Start Your Grant Application, and this will take you through the process to log in and start your account. We also have a video of this entire process available on the hyperlink right here. So, yes. Back to PowerPoint, share window. Okay, so a few tips in general just for navigating all of these things. We encourage you to save as you go and to copy and paste from Word. The formatting, no worries about that. No worries. The text box may not expand, but all of that great content is there, and you will be able to see it. The scroll bar is the most effective tool to move through the application. Again, any registered staff can prepare and save the same application, but with multiple staff working on the same spot, it could overwrite each other, and we'll have an example here of that in a moment. And when you're all done, of course, make sure to save and close. So an example of what I've been inferring to, we have two users here, Susan and Carl, and Susan starts the report at 8 o'clock, and a few minutes later, Carl starts the report. And based on when Susan saves and when Carl saves, Carl's information will overwrite Susan's, which if I was Susan, I would be quite frustrated and dismayed. So it's always smart to communicate with your team and make sure that only one draft of the report is open at a time. All right, so then when submitting a report, general knowledge here, making sure all your fields are completed, that you are able to answer, making sure that all that internal review is done, double checking with your executive director to ensure that it's been approved, hit submit, and then on the agency dashboard, you will see your submission verified. All right, and I'm gonna turn it over to Rachel.
Thanks, Beth. So this is Rachel Speck. I'm the Senior Manager for Increased Earning, which is our adult employment and training portfolio. So I'm just going to share with you all a couple of final tips in review of what you've heard today. So as Naomi shared towards the beginning, our staff here, we actually learn from the annual reports that our partners are submitting. It helps shape our thinking and what we're able to share at community tables to lift up your work and advocate for the things that your organizations are voicing and advocating for as well. So with that in mind, a few final tips. The first being that aim for accuracy and quality. We're not looking for reading fairy tales here. We're really looking for you to showcase the depth of your work with your participants and with your communities in an accurate way for us to be able to have a cohesive and consistent understanding of your work in the community. The second there is really to focus. The narrative questions are really an opportunity to tell your program story and focus on what you think is important. They're open-ended for that very reason. As Zach shared, we encourage you to start the report as soon as possible. As you saw, there's a couple of steps before starting a report that are really important, like gaining access to the portal and figuring out with your colleagues who's going to complete which parts of the report and when. So we encourage you to start that as soon as possible. If not, for the very primary reason that our help desk team, it may take them a day or two to get back to you with providing access to anyone who needs to require or request new access. And finally, if you have questions, if you have concerns, if you want to bounce an idea off of one of us, please absolutely reach out to your program manager contact. We're always happy to talk and are around and available to do so with you, and have been through this a few times, as many of you have as well, so can offer some good insight and guidance if you have some questions that you'd like to chat through. So next is just looking at those very same people who you should reach out to if you have questions within each portfolio. These are all of our staff as current as today even. So if you have questions, you know how to reach out to. What I would just reiterate here is I frequently hear from folks asking me for access to the grants portal, and would just encourage you to make sure you follow the steps and processes. And if something seems like it's goofing up on the portal with your report, please contact our information technology help desk there at the bottom of the screen, because they're going to be far more effective and efficient in helping you than I will ever hope to be. And then, so thank you all. We'll take a look at some of the questions that have been submitted now. Nobody has even asked any questions at you guys. So we'll hang on for a couple of moments if you have questions, and we'll be sure to answer them if any of them come up. Otherwise, be sure to reach out to your program manager as you're completing reports and having questions, and make sure you're also looking to the tips pages that are sheets that we developed for each of the program areas that will have more specific content geared towards your particular grants and those annual reports if you have them. Is there anything else anyone else around the table here would add as we're kind of waiting to see if questions come through?
Okay. Okay, do we have any information on fiscal year 20 funding?
We do not have any information. So the question we got was, do we have information on our fiscal year 2020 funding? We do not have that yet. We're still working on our fiscal year 2019 funding as well. So we're focused on that for right now. We will be sharing more information with all of our partners here towards the fall, probably September, October timeframe. So look for more information from us at that time regarding future funding opportunities. Any other questions, Marquita?
Not yet.
Not yet? All right. Well, we'll hang around for a couple more minutes. Feel free to ask us some questions. We can respond either directly to you or over the line here, and we'll look forward to hearing from you in the coming weeks as well. So we got a question about making the slides available for the presentation today. Yes, they will be made available on the nonprofit portal webpage on the annual reporting page that Zach showed you earlier. So the slides will be up there for you all to browse and use when you need it, as well as the recording of our webinar this afternoon. All right, I think that's it. No one else has submitted any questions to us. Thank you for joining us this afternoon and for your attention to annual reports. We'll look forward to hearing from you as you have questions and to reading your reports in September when they've been submitted. Thank you so much.